In 1977, she tended to a burned baby, never imagining the impact it would have nearly 4 decades later. This is the tale of a nurse who cared for a burn victim back then, and how 38 years later, an unexpected event unfolded. Every time I hear this story, it brings tears to my eyes. Allow me to share how it all happened. Amanda Scarpinetti was just 3 months old when a tragic accident changed her life. As a tiny baby, she rolled off the couch and fell into a boiling steam vaporizer, resulting in severe burns to her delicate body. The melted mentholated ointment further scalded her skin and damaged her tissues. It was a catastrophic event, prompting an immediate call for an ambulance. Everyone feared for her life. She was taken to the nearest facility, Albany Medical Center, where she would unknowingly meet the woman who would haunt her dreams for years to come. As a 3-month-old, Amanda was unaware of the gravity of her situation. All she felt was intense pain and confusion. Amanda required treatment for third-degree burns covering much of her body, with the most severe damage to her arms and head. The hospital staff worked tirelessly to keep her comfortable, and she remained hospitalized for several weeks, undergoing careful monitoring and frequent bandage changes. The greatest concern was infection, but fortunately, she managed to pull through and was eventually discharged. However, this marked only the beginning of a long and painful journey for little Amanda. The burns caused permanent damage and severe scarring on her little body, and she would have to learn to live with this. In the meantime, her parents received a message from the hospital. During Amanda's treatments, photos had been taken of her and a nurse together, and these photos were selected to adorn the cover and inlays of the Albany Medical Center's annual report. They were sent copies of the report, and when Amanda was old enough, they showed her the images and told her the story of how her body had become so damaged. Amanda was fascinated by the photos and looked at them often. She saw herself as a tiny baby wrapped in bandages in the arms of a nurse who lovingly held her. In none of the pictures was she crying, although she must have been in severe pain. It seemed that she was very comfortable in the arms of this unidentified woman. Who was she? Amanda often wondered, but her parents had no idea and couldn't tell her. She would dream of meeting this lady one day, though. It was one of the few comforts she had in her difficult childhood. Due to the burns, she had to undergo several surgeries and treatments, and because the scars on her body made her look different, she was often bullied at school. They would call her names and take her things, and Amanda would spend a lot of time by herself. Over and over, she would look at the comforting photos. In beautiful black and white, she looked peaceful in the arms of the nurse, who was smiling down on her. She held on to the pictures dearly and dreamed of that woman who seemed to care for her so sincerely and was so kind to her. She would even talk to the woman, telling her troubles and worries, explaining her sadness about the bullying, without any idea what her name was. Growing up into a beautiful young lady, Amanda was resolved to find this nurse one day, and she tried several times to find out more information. However, the annual report had not mentioned the name of the nurse, and several inquiries with the medical center also did not yield any useful details. She was only able to find out that the pictures were taken by a photographer named Carl Howard, but his subjects weren't identified at the time. It seemed like no one knew who this amazing nurse was that had been working in the recovery room of that hospital in 1977. Amanda would have given anything to meet her and thank her for showing her such loving care and tenderness when she needed it the most. Something inside her made her want to meet this person so badly. With the passing years, the knowledge of the nurse's identity may have gotten buried further and further. The technologies in the world, of course, did not stand still. Around 2015, a friend who knew about Amanda's wish to meet her mystery nurse urged her to try again and to use social media this time. Amanda realized that Facebook might indeed be just the tool for her to complete her mission. By now, she was 38 years old and living in Athens, 25 miles south of Albany, where she worked as a human resources manager. Amanda carefully took out the photos that were so dear to her, scanned them, and uploaded them to Facebook. She created a post and asked people to share it far and wide. Amanda hoped that online, the post would reach the right person, someone who had any information about her or who might even be able to identify the woman in the pictures. Maybe now, with the power of social media, someone would recognize her. I would love to know her name and possibly get a chance to talk to her and meet her, she wrote next to it. Please share, as you never know who it could reach. You never know indeed. The post went completely viral and received many shares and likes. People loved the story and sincerely hoped that Amanda would find her nurse. But it also hit home. Only one day after she had posted it, Amanda got the lead she had been looking for. A woman named Angela Leary, who had been a fellow nurse at the medical center back then, recognized the woman in the pictures. She sent Amanda a message and told her that the nurse's name was Susan Berger and that, yes, she was as sweet and as caring as she looked in the picture. Angela knew Sue had moved away but was not sure where she was living now. But the name was all that Amanda needed to find her mystery nurse. Now she had been identified. She was thrilled. After a search of more than 20 years, and 38 years after it had all happened, it had now taken only 24 short hours to find out who the woman was. If only she had thought of this sooner. But Amanda could not have been happier. She had a name and a connection, and soon enough, she was able to get her hands on Sue Berger's phone number. Sue had been 21 years old when the photos were taken and had just come out of college. Amanda happened to have been one of her very first patients and definitely touched Sue's heart. Sue remembered the little burned baby as very peaceful, she said. Usually when babies come out of surgery, they're sleeping or crying. She was just so calm and trusting. It was amazing. Amazing indeed. It turned out that for Sue, the encounter in that recovery room in 1977 had also had a lasting impact. She even had her own copies of the pictures that Amanda had kept all those years and still treasured them. Sue had always wondered what had happened to little Amanda and if she was okay. But to suddenly hear from her 38 years later, after she had held her in her arms, she had not expected at all. I was just speechless, she said, and to think that someone would have thought about it all those years and just saved the photo as I did myself. Sue was still working as a medical professional, now as executive vice president of the health center at Cazenovia College in New York, when she received word from Amanda. The first phone call between the two was incredibly emotional, and Sue mentioned that it was so good to hear her voice and have her explain emotionally where she was coming from. Of course, they had to meet in person as well. This encounter, almost 40 years in the making, had to happen, and it was arranged to take place at the Albany Medical Center, where they had spent those special moments together all those years ago. The media would also be there. Surely they couldn't pass up covering such a touching story. Amanda was nervous leading up to the event, and when she finally saw Sue, she could not contain her tears. The emotion I felt, I wasn't prepared for when I saw her, she stated. After a long and heartfelt embrace between the two, Amanda said it felt like hugging a mom to her. "Oh my God, you're real," she exclaimed, overwhelmed with joy at finally being able to thank Sue in person for the love and care she had received as a baby. Amanda had waited so long for this moment, often doubting it would ever come. But now her deepest wish had been fulfilled, and she could look into the eyes of the incredibly compassionate nurse and express her gratitude. Sue, too, was deeply moved and delighted to see that Amanda had grown into a beautiful young woman and was doing well. "I might be even happier about this reunion than you are," Sue said. "I don't know how many nurses are fortunate enough to experience something like this, to have someone remember you all those years." She felt honored to represent all the nurses who had cared for Amanda over the years. If any scarring remains on Amanda's body, it is barely noticeable, and she looks stunning. A closer look reveals the resemblance between the tiny baby wrapped in white bandages and the beautiful woman standing on stage beside her hero nurse. When asked if this meeting marks the beginning of a long friendship, Amanda replied that it already had been a lifelong friendship. She just hadn't realized it. If you're also thrilled that Amanda was able to make her wish come true, give this video a thumbs up and share your own story of using social media to reconnect with someone from your past.